To delve into the issue of Melee, Funcom right now is under a lot of grace. PvP is at an all-time low, with most servers being either dead or inactive, so PvP, regardless of how bad they are, isn't felt by many, simply because there's no one around doing PvP. This will change in the future with server mergers, and it will always be a critical issue if Funcom plan on having people play their game. The good news is that the solution is rather simple. Melee is a complex system in Dune Awakening, but please don't try to overthink the problem. The fact that Suspensor Blast and Cripple Strike were nerfed in the same way together suggests that with this nerf, Funcom was targeting the broken method of using Cripple Strike together with Suspensor Blast to inflict a huge stamina debuff on a target, which was game-breakingly bad. Funcom was 100% in the right to try and solve this problem. However, by making both skills obsolete, it brought up from the deep a terrible realization that without at least one of these skills, Melee was unable to meet conditions in order to retain minimum viability. The problem was this combo creating a really bad unbalanced effect in Melee that needed not just to be nerfed, but literally disappear because of how bad it was. However, it did make for some really interesting high-skill Melee exchanges. The culprit in this problem is, however, Suspensor Blast. Cripple Strike is the only Swordmaster ability that allows Melee to have a chance at meeting conditions for minimum viability. Suspensor Blast is a trooper ability that does everything Cripple Strike does, but better, which is strange to say that ranged play has not only a far greater variety and effectiveness than Melee does, but it also has a clone of the only ability that makes Melee viable. Cripple Strike costs 35 stamina to activate. Suspensor Blast costs 0. Cripple Strike can only affect whoever is physically attacked with a sword, and can be blocked, parried, or dodged out of. Suspensor Blast affects everybody in an AoE bubble with no weapon, cannot be blocked, cannot be parried, and it can't be dodged out of. Cripple Strike cannot be used if you are stunned or staggered, and it can be interrupted. Suspensor Blast can be used while you're staggered, even while you're being slow-bladed, making it the only ability in the game that can do that. Cripple Strike is the balanced skill that makes Melee minimally viable, whereas Suspensor Blast is an overpowered clone as a trooper skill that only uses Cripple Strike as a simple boost to achieve game-breaking stamina debuffs. Funcom were 100% correct to target this bad balance, but Suspensor Blast needed to be remade, because as we can see now, with mountains of feedback and proof that without Cripple Strike as it was, Melee is useless entirely, whether as a pure or as a hybrid. Hybrid builds imply the use of a variety of effective tactics. Melee is not an effective tactic in any situation, thereby making hybrids pointless. The solution can be broken down as follows, assuming we're starting by reverting the nerfs to Suspensor Blast and Cripple Strike. Firstly, Cripple Strike is to be left alone. Remove the function of stacking stamina debuffs. Cripple Strike cannot stack on itself. Suspensor Blast cannot stack on itself either. But with Cripple Strike and Suspensor Blast, you get the crazy stamina debuff. Simply remove the ability for Suspensor Blast and Cripple to stack, and you will have sufficiently solved the problem, while retaining the minimum viability for Melee. You can even go a little bit further by removing the stamina debuff that Suspensor Blast inflicts. After all, Suspensor Blast is just a better Cripple Strike in every way. It makes little sense that there should exist a trooper ability that is a souped up clone of the only viable Melee ability. Even the tooltip suggests that Suspensor Blast is not a clone of Cripple Strike. Out of Melee and ranged, Melee is the most unique, most entertaining, and lore accurate way to play Dune. With great struggle, it was somewhat viable beforehand. Lots of people were hoping that, considering this is a Dune game, that sword fighting would have favour before the developers. Seeing Funcom drop Melee like a rock in a Dune game has pitted many fans against Funcom, for without reason, the lore accurate way to fight was made little more than a decoration.